Welcome to Travel Devil. I'm your host Clara Francken, and in a world full of mass tourism, we're here to talk about unconventional travel. Let's get into it. Hi, and welcome to Travel Devil. Today my guest is Eva Werners, better known as Eva and the Planet. She's been traveling and living in Southeast Asia for the past years, hosts group trips with focus on local travel and community. And today, Eva is sharing her stories and practical tips about bus traveling in Thailand and Laos, and also even comparing it to train travel in those countries. So let's get into this. Eva, welcome to Travel Devil.
Hi. So nice to meet you. Happy I'm here.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. Can you start by introducing yourself in your own words?
Yeah, of course. So I'm Eva. I'm from Germany originally. And a few years ago, actually, particularly in 2021, I decided to leave my life behind in Germany and I quit everything. I used to work in corporate in the finance sector. That's kind of like my work background. And I went on a one-way ticket to Thailand. And I completely fell in love with the country already many years before that. But ever since I came in 21, I've been living here and slow traveling. So basically, I've been living nomadically. I spend a lot of time in Thailand, but I also move around to different countries, like, for example, Laos, what we're talking about today. But I also spend a lot of time in Indonesia, in Sri Lanka, particularly, and some time in Vietnam as well. So those are kind of like my 5 countries.
Wow, okay. And coming from Germany, what drew you to Southeast Asia?
In 2014 was the very first time when I ever traveled to Thailand. It was a very typical backpacking trip. And I had this deep calling, I guess, inside of me because I used to travel very differently. So I used to do like all inclusive trips and, going on vacation to Turkey or Southern Europe. And then in 2014, I said to my sister, well, I think we should go further and see how the world is over there. And we ended up, going to Thailand for a month. I would say we did a very typical trip. We went 2 weeks to the south, we went 2 weeks to the north. We explored some islands, but then also the north. We went to Chiang Mai and Pai, which I think is a very typical itinerary even today when you have that time, when you have 3 to 4 weeks. Yeah, and this is how I got hooked into this region
Wow.
to Thailand. I've never been anywhere else in terms of like a tropical country or region. I've never been to Central America or South America or African countries. I always I always come back to Southeast Asia because I love it here. I love a lot of different things about the region. The food specifically. I'm vegan for already a very long time, over 10 years. And it's quite easy to eat vegan here. I mean, first of all, the food is delicious, but second of all, you get all the dishes with tofu, or in certain areas, you also get dishes with tempeh, which is fermented soybean. So it really is so much easier to eat vegan than perhaps in other countries in South or Central America.
Yeah, I'm sure. I think it's funny that you were comparing it to the all-inclusive thing that a lot of Germans have as a typical way of traveling. Because I also live in Germany and I know a lot of people who, like, when they talk about their travel pasts, it's like mostly them with their family going to these all-inclusive places in Turkey, exactly as you were mentioning it,
Yeah.
to just sit at a pool or like sit at a hotel and don't even see anything. So you chose a whole different way of traveling now. What is the meaning of slow travel to you?
So for me, slow travel is about really taking time in a country. And I would not necessarily say slow travel means that you have to spend months and months. Of course, that is amazing if you have that time. But I personally think you can also slow travel if you have, for example, a month, because you could decide, okay, I'm only going to see 2 to 3 spots in that specific country. And then spend some more time in each location instead of saying, okay, I'm going to Thailand for 3 weeks, but I want to see 8 different spots, like 4 islands and, different, the Bangkok, different cities in the north. And then I think that's first of all very stressful, and I feel like you also don't really have the time to get to know a place. Because if you only spend like a night or two in one place, then you don't really have time to see anything. So I think slow travel is really about diving a bit deeper. The deepest, I guess, your trip length can give you. Because I know that, of course, not everyone can travel for several months, right? Like some people, the majority probably only has a few weeks per year going on a bigger trip like that.
Yeah, that's true. And we were talking about bus travel. Could you paint us the picture of how it is to travel by bus in Thailand?
Yeah, of course. So I would say in Thailand, bus travel is super easy. In general, traveling in Thailand, I think that's also why a lot of people say it's like very beginner friendly in Southeast Asia because it's everything is organized and everything will work out. It doesn't even matter from where to where you want to go. There will be a bus. There's different types of buses. There's minivans, which are I think around 12 to 15 seats, I think. And then those are most common going between different places. But then if the distances are a bit longer, it's a typical bus. Actually, I have no idea how many seats a normal bus has, but it's probably at least 40 seats, right? So yeah, those are like the two main differences between bus travel in Thailand. But then we also have night buses. So you can travel during the day, which is then I would say mainly the minivans. But then for longer stretches, you can also do them in a night bus, which is my preferred way of traveling because you you save accommodation for one night, you can sleep on the bus. Of course, it depends how easy it is for you if you can like sleep on buses. But there's really comfortable night buses and so I think it's super easy. There's different booking platforms for finding buses, but obviously you can always also just ask in your hotel. They'll organize everything for you. I've never had one situation in my life in Southeast Asia where they said, "No, this doesn't work. You can't go there."
Yeah.
It's always possible.
I want to get into night bus travel as well, but first I want to ask you something else. But as you were saying now, the fact that they don't even say no to anything, it makes me think of when I was in Thailand. It's a long time ago. I was there with my family. I think I don't know, I was 17 maybe? It was a while ago, and we remember like even asking for the streets, like in which direction we needed to go, and the Thailandic people, is it Thailandic people? The Thai people.
The Thai people.
The Thai people.
Yeah.
Yes, the Thai people always wanted to please, so they're like big. I felt like they were a big people pleaser. So even if they were pointing you in the wrong direction, they wanted to give you the satisfaction of a yes. So they would just, if they don't know where it is, they would still like point us to a certain direction, which I was like, you can just say no. You don't have to say yes all the time. If you don't know it, it's fine.
Yeah.
I will ask somebody else, but don't show me the wrong direction. But yeah, I had to think about that when you were saying the fact that they will also always help you. And I'm sure if you're staying at a hotel or in a hostel, they have the knowledge and they have this people pleasing tendency, which is amazing for us as travelers. Like they want to help us, and that's perfect. That's amazing. You were mentioning there were different kind of buses before getting into the night bus. What kind of buses do we have in Thailand?
Yeah. Okay, actually, yeah, there's also tuk-tuks. Well, the tuk-tuks are more of a thing in bigger cities. So you see them in Chiang Mai, you see them in Bangkok, but only in certain areas. For example, in Bangkok, you'll only find them in Chinatown. And here in Chiang Mai, I see them in the old square, like the old city center.
And they are very small.
They're very small. I mean, I would say you can't really do long distance traveling with a tuk-tuk. It's basically the driver in the front, and then you have two I would say maximum three people can fit in the back. So it's more of a, you can drive around the city kind of transport. And then for shorter distances, we have the minivans, which I would really say are most common especially, let's say, if you're in the south of Thailand and there's islands on two different sides in the south of Thailand. We have the Andaman Sea, but we also have the Gulf of Thailand. So oftentimes you want to travel from one side to the other because you want to see two different islands, right? For that case, I would almost say 100% get a minivan, unless it's a very, very popular route. Then I've already had the case, then it's actually a big bus. So for example, you come from the islands like Koh Samui, Koh Phangan, Koh Tao, and then you want to travel down to Krabi, which is the Andaman Sea. I've done that several times, and then in this case, you go on a big bus because it's such a popular route, and especially if you go in the high season, they have enough bookings to just have people on a big bus.
Mm-hmm.
But then for, I'll say, not as popular routes, or maybe if it's not in the high season, they'll probably use the minivans. And in general, I would say it's for like trips between 3, 5, maybe maximum 6 hours. 6 is already quite long on these buses because sometimes they pack them up to the to the maximum. I mean, I just had that last year again. I went to Koh Lanta, which is an island in the south, and I had a transport from the airport, and they really squeeze in as many people as possible, plus the luggage. I mean, of course, it has to be economically viable for them. So that's the minivans. And then there's, of course, also a lot of big normal buses that go during the day, but also in the nighttime on certain routes. So big bus, I'll say 40 to 50 seats. And especially actually also in Bangkok, in the city itself, there's a lot of local buses to, like how we just know it. I know it from Germany, right? If I think about Berlin, there's a bunch of buses also going around. So you have that in Bangkok too. So there's buses and plus, of course, the metro.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then the big buses, I'll say a common route for a tourist would be between Bangkok and Chiang Mai, between Chiang Mai and Chiang Rai. So Chiang Rai is a bit further northeast, and there's very famous and beautiful temples. That is also a hotspot for tourists. I would say those routes are really popular, and you'll 100% be on a big bus for sure.
Okay, and then you have night trains.
Yes.
The night trains, I'm assuming they are big buses as well. If you're traveling on a night bus in Thailand, how does that look like?
Yeah, so I've taken several night buses between Bangkok and Chiang Mai. I would say that's a very common route. And there are different classes. So it gets a bit tricky when you book the night bus because obviously you kind of need to know which one is most comfortable. So I'll say there's the normal ones, which are just is a regular bus with 40, 50 seats. You have to sit upright. There is no, I'll say, comfort in terms of if you want to sleep, right? So that's just a normal bus, but obviously it's also the cheapest one that goes in the night. But then there's also, it's called the VIP bus.
Ula.
It's so funny how they call it the VIP bus. And they are, the seats almost look like business class seats. So they only have, like business class seats we know from an airplane, but
Oh, so you have like a lot of
they're
space.
like, they're really wide. They're really wide. They don't, unfortunately, you can't lay down like completely flat, but they fold back a little bit. And but of course, because the seats are so wide, there's a lot of space and there's not that many seats. I think it's 20 seats in one bus. So it's like half of the capacity of, let's say, a normal bus that you can travel with in the night. So I love the VIP bus. It's my favorite bus. It's really comfortable. On that route, I think it takes about 10 hours. So normally you leave either Chiang Mai or Bangkok around 8 or 9 p.m. and then you arrive the next day between 5 and 6 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really nice. I mean, I think it stops once for which is always very random, to be honest. I don't know why they do that, but they stop at like 2 in the morning where everybody's kind of sleeping, and then they're like, "Yeah, you can go out for food now." So so you stop at this random place every single time, and it's like a 20-minute break. Obviously, you can go to the bathroom, but there's also toilets on the bus, so
How is the toilet on a bus though?
they're fine. I think they're actually quite clean. I've never I've had toilets in I know you're a fan of the Flix the Flix bus.
Like I'm a
I've taken the Flix, but
I'm using the Flex bus because it's good and it's affordable, but I
yeah.
don't know if I'm like the biggest fan of their bathrooms.
Yeah, I know. I know. I mean, I've taken a lot of Flix buses in my life between Hamburg and Berlin back in the days. So I know the toilet situation can be a bit difficult. So yeah, but on this VIP bus, the toilet always works, at least on all my trips. It's been fine. It's not like dirty or anything. Yeah, and that's a VIP bus. And I think there's also some in between. So then it's like around 30 seats, and I think you can kind of also recline your seat, but you might have a neighbor.
Okay, so you have like annoying seat kind of thing. No, okay.
No, no, it's like the bus itself is then either the VIP bus or the regular bus, and all seats are the same.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And the prices, how do they differ? Like if you said like a regular bus has 40 seats, the VIP has 20 seats. I'm assuming it's already gonna be like double the price, or is it even more expensive?
So the VIP bus is around 30. I'll say, well, it always depends on the exchange rate, right? But somewhere between 25 and 30 euros for the distance between Bangkok and Thailand. This is the most expensive one. Then the mediums, I'll say the medium VIP buses where you can still kind of lay down, they are maybe 5 to 10 euros cheaper. And then these like the really basic buses you can probably get for 10 or under 10 euros.
Oh wow, okay.
They're probably only like 400 baht. Yeah.
Okay. And have you traveled with those ones as well?
No, for the night bus, always just the super VIP or the medium VIP version, but not. Yeah, I always kind of wanted to try and sleep a little bit.
Yeah, I get it. Of course, if you're sitting up straight, that's gonna be more tricky. But it's good that there are options for all price categories. At the same time, I'm wondering, it's like with this class system or whatever it's called, like you have like the people with lower, like the people from Thailand who don't earn enough money, who maybe cannot afford to sit on the nice bus. Who is sitting next to you on the VIP bus?
Mostly Thais.
Mostly Thais. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Cool.
I'll say from like 20 people, it's 3 to 4 foreigners and the rest are Thais.
Okay, nice. And you see a difference already between the VIP and the medium VIP, like as a clientele?
I generally feel like, specifically on a route like Bangkok to Chiang Mai, the tourists tend to take the train. But so I think the buses are always mainly locals. But again, I've never been on the cheapest one. So I don't know if like the the budget backpackers, if they say, well, I only want to spend $10 on this bus, maybe they're all on the very cheap one. And not so many on the VIP bus.
Okay, yeah, that could be. Interesting. All right.
Yeah.
The first time you went on a bus in Thailand, can you take me back to that first time? How was it? Which bus was it? And what was your experience like?
Okay, let me think. The very first bus must have been okay, so that was a minivan because first I traveled by train and then I took a minivan. And on that trip in 2014, I honestly came without a plan. Like my sister and I, we didn't even we didn't even have a Lonely Planet or anything like that. We were just like, oh yeah, we'll just go with the flow and see, which is amazing, I think, because I sometimes I feel like travel should be a bit more like that.
I agree.
It's not really like that anymore. You just kind of you see something on Instagram and you wanna see it. But also, places are just booked out in advance, so you can't really it's almost not really possible anymore to travel like that. But anyway, we traveled down to the south. We ended up in a very random town, and we were in a homestay, and then everyone said, like, "You need to go to this island." We're like, "Okay." Never heard of that island before. So we traveled to the island and took the minivan, and I remember actually in that town, they so we took the train sorry, not the train. We took the minivan at 7 in the morning, I think, was, like, the earliest, so we would make it over to the other side, and I remember how the homestay owner said, "Well, be aware of the dogs." We were like, "Oh my god, what does that mean?" So, in Thailand or also in other Southeast Asian countries, there's a lot of street dogs. I've actually never really had an issue with the street dogs, like, they never attacked me, but to be honest, that morning, maybe because I was in we were in a town that was not very touristic, so, like, there was, like, a pack of dogs, and one was just really, like, hardcore barking at us and was, like, showing the teeth, and we were like, "Oh my god." My sister, like, who's 5 years younger than me, she, like, handled the situation so well, she just was, like, lifting the stick. And then it was fine, we passed them, we, like, yelled at the dogs,
Oh, wow.
and but that's, like, a memory I have, like, walking to that bus station, and then we went on the minivan, and going from east to west in the south of Thailand, you kind of always have to go through, like, very jungly terrain. So you need to have I'll say you need to have a good stomach to, not get motion sick while on these minivans because the minivans oftentimes are quite fast, like the way they drive. I mean, they drive those roads every single day, most likely, so they know the roads. They probably know every single corner. So, yeah, that's just something that I also remember, going from one place to the town where the harbor was. It's yeah. If you have a a sensitive stomach, you better take, like, a motion sickness pill. But we survived, and, yeah, we arrived there a few hours later, and then we were able to take a ferry to the island. But, yeah, that was my very first bus experience in Thailand in 2014.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That must have been intense as well with the dogs and everything.
Oh my god, yeah.
But it's good that you knew the trick. I've heard from another person that if there's nothing, you should just like pretend throwing stones. Ah. And even if you pretend, just because they know that people would throw stones at them, just even making the movement of throwing the stone will already scare them away. But I'm not the dog expert either. It's just a bicycle cyclist who told me this story, like that this was helping him when he was cycling through countries with a lot of stray dogs.
Good point. Yeah, yeah.
All right, I actually really wanted to know the difference between the buses and the trains a bit better or understand why you would choose the bus over the train because you already mentioned that you traveled by train as well, specifically. And this one trip you were talking about that you took the night bus a couple of times. Why did you choose the bus over the train?
So the route between Bangkok and Chiang Mai often is booked out months in advance.
Wow.
Yeah, especially in the high season because I think it is so popular to take that night train. Also just as an experience, of course. If you come to Thailand for the first time and you want to see the south, you want to see the north, I mean, you can take the airplane, but you can also take the bus and the train. I think within the backpacker circles, I think the majority knows about the trains and focuses on getting a train. So if you are a little bit more spontaneous and don't wanna potentially book months in advance, you might end up taking the bus. So I think I've had those situations that the trains were already booked out, and then we ended up taking the bus. I like them both, to be honest. I think both is nice.
Mhm.
In the train, I guess, you can really, like, sleep flat. or how would you say sleep flat?
You can lay down, yeah.
You can lay down properly. So of course that's an advantage. But again, the bus itself is also really comfortable.
Yeah. But I guess in the train as well, it depends in which compartment you are.
Yes.
If you're sitting on the regular seat, again, you will not lay down. I think it's only for the bed department, right? But I also don't know
Yeah.
how the train look like in Thailand. But as far as I know from where I traveled by train and night trains, there's also always the option to book the cheaper night train, which is mostly where I find myself. Because the night trains with the sleeper beds, they can get like really expensive. So mostly as well, I'm sitting on like seats. You can recline them a bit, but you can never lay fully down.
Yeah.
Okay, so trains in Thailand. Is the train system good in Thailand? Hi there. I recently found out that only 17% of my podcast listeners are subscribed to the podcast as well. I would love to increase the number and make sure that you as well know that the new podcast episode is coming out. So if you would like to support my show, I would love it if you can give me a rating wherever you listen to the show and just hit that subscribe button. My first goal is to reach 30%. Do you think you can help me? I would really appreciate it so that I can continue making this amazing content about slow travel, about alternative travel, sustainable travel for you guys and girls, for everyone. Thank you so much. Subscribe to my podcast. Thanks, and let's get back to the episodes.
I would say so, yes. You could really travel all the way down to Malaysia by train or to Laos. So in both directions, you have train routes. Obviously, you can also do all of that by bus. But for those longer distances, I personally think doing that with a night train is much more comfortable because I actually don't know, for example, going into Laos or maybe going into Malaysia, I don't know for certain if there's these VIP night buses or if it's then just more of a regular bus, but then you don't have that comfort compared to booking a night train in second class with a sleeper bed. That's a big difference. The train system is basically Bangkok and then north, south, and east. But then from Chiang Mai, like Chiang Mai is kind of the end. Like as far as I know, there's no more train tracks going further north of Chiang Mai.
Hmm.
Yeah, it definitely has a good train system.
Okay, and do the class system also exist on trains?
Yeah, so there's 3 different classes on the train. So we have the third class, second class, and first class. I've never been on the first class. I looked at photos. And the first class is like you have your own private cabin. I think it's only 2 seats. And they also can change them into beds. Then we have second class with a sleeping option. So in that scenario is you start by sitting and then I'll say 2 hours later they come around and then they change all the seats into beds. So there's like a system how they fold them and then it's bunk beds. So you have one on the top and one on the bottom. The bottom one is definitely the better one because you have more space. And then the third class is just seats. And I do think there's also a second class only sitting. It's really a bit confusing. But yeah, when you book it you want to lay down, you definitely have to look for the sleeper class. And I think that's the one, the second class sleeper is the one that gets booked out super quickly if it's the Bangkok Chiang Mai route.
Mm-hmm. And comparing again with prices, how expensive is a night train there?
So the second class sleeper train is also, I think, very similar, to be honest, like the VIP bus. It's around 1,000 baht, which is somewhere between 25 and 30 euros, depending on the exchange rate. So I'll just say 30 euros for the second class and the sleeper one. And then actually the first class, I don't know.
Okay, so but the middle class means it's as expensive as the bus, the VIP bus.
Yeah, exactly.
And like comfort wise, would you still choose the train Or do you think the VIP bus is actually really nice and you would prefer to always travel with that if you're comparing these two?
Hmm. So everything, I feel like everything has a bit of a pro and a con. So the train, I really love that you can lay down all the way, and you get like little curtain. You have like little curtains covering like your bed, and but they keep the light on all night.
Oh,
So that's like something I don't understand why they do that. So you definitely should bring, if you're really light sensitive, you should bring like a eye mask. And then in the bus, they actually, it's dark. It's dark outside, it's dark in the bus. And I feel like it's just kind of easier to sleep there.
maybe for safety reasons.
In the train?
I'm thinking, like, why would they leave the lights on? But in a bus,
Yeah.
there's only 20 people in the whole bus, so nothing's really gonna happen because the bus driver is in the front. But in a train that's like so long, so many people,
Yeah.
weird people could come in. And if it's like total dark,
Yeah, maybe.
do you have a way to like close your compartments?
No, I mean, it's just like train compartments I'll say, from Europe. I mean, they're maybe not as well, obviously, because they have to make them into beds, so it's less seats in one wagon.
How many people are sleeping on a bed in a wagon?
You mean how many beds per wagon?
Wait, not how many people are sleeping on one bed. I mean, how many beds are in one wagon? Yeah.
That's a good question. I would say it's maximum 20. Well, it's always bunks, so it's always 2. Yeah, maybe it's like 20, maybe 10 on each side, so maybe like 5 rows, 5 on each per wagon. Maybe, but let's say maybe it's 6 on each, but it's not massive because if you'd walk through the aisle of the wagon, you have the beds on each side. So and then they're not super long. I'll say they're maximum 180, 1 meter 80. So if if you're really tall, then you probably have to curl up. I mean, for me, it always works. For some reason, the top bunk is much thinner. Do you say thinner? Like it's not as wide as the lower one.
Interesting.
I don't know why they did that, but the lower one gives you so much more space. And then the top, so I would always say if you can book the bottom bed, definitely book the bottom one. You just have more space than in the top one you feel like, okay, need to be careful that I don't fall out.
Okay, is there like a railway? No, not a railway. A rail that makes sure that you don't fall?
Yeah, there's like a little thingy on the side.
Okay. Let's talk a bit about Laos.
Yeah.
So, first of all, how do we get from Thailand to Laos? What are the options? So, first of all, how do we get from Thailand to Laos? What are the options?
So the options are either if you come from the north, from northern Thailand, you can travel from Chiang Mai to a town called Chiang Kong. So that's Thailand right on the border to Laos. And then you cross over and then you can take a boat. It's the slow boat, it's very popular. It takes 2 days until you're in Luang Prabang and it stops in a town called Pak Beng. So basically, it's about 8 hours per day. And it really cruises along the Mekong. Like that boat is really a slow boat. It's like this long wooden boat. Has Funny enough, it has like old minivan seats as the seats. So when I took that boat, which was in 2022, it had these minivan seats. I have a friend and also my sister who traveled to Laos years before that, and they said they only had wooden seats. So it was definitely a little bit of an improvement.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, having a bit of a cushiony seat on that trip. Yeah, and then so that's two days on the boat. Very popular with backpackers, and then the other option is by train, and you can enter Laos in different area. So the north is the boat, and then I've entered Laos in the center. I'll say central Laos, which is by the capital, Vientiane. So that's a direct train from Bangkok. But then I've also taken a train from Bangkok to in Thailand called Ubon Ratchathani. I hope I pronounced that right. which is which borders more of a with the south of Laos. So then you stop at the train station, then you have to take another jump on a pickup truck or something like that for another half hour to the border, and then you cross over, and then you come to Paxe. So Paxe then is in the south of Laos. So that's also what I've done. And obviously you could fly as well. But since we're talking about sustainable travel methods, the boat and the train are your best options. I do think there's also buses, but I've never taken them.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. And in Laos, as we're on the topic of bus travel, how is it to travel by bus in Laos? What options do we have over there?
So the bus travel in Laos is definitely the kind of travel I remember the most because those were the craziest bus rides. Just because when I traveled Laos extensively, I traveled the entire country. That was in 2017, where it was I mean, it's still not developed a lot, but it's a bit more developed now than back then. And so there's also something just like pickup trucks. So like it's like kind of like a truck, and then it has a bit of like benches in the back. I'll say it squeezes in like 10 people. But I've been on that one for 2 hours. So that's like one version of bus travel. That was in
Mm-hmm.
the south, like in the very far south. Potentially it's different now, but in 2017 it was like that. And then between like the different places in the south, I went on, I'll say, normal buses, but the travel was just really long. It says it takes 6 hours, but then in the end it took 8 or 10 or maybe perhaps I think even 12 because the roads were just not great. Some parts have good concrete, some is more like dirt roads, then the bus stops all the time. And I remember I was traveling with my ex-partner back then. It was like his first time traveling in Southeast Asia, and he got so annoyed. I think maybe a very German trait, wanting to complain about everything. And I remember he
Yes.
got so annoyed, and I'm like, "Well, what do you wanna do now? We're on this bus. We're either we get off or we just continue." So, of course, we continued. Yeah, and the another thing I remember from those buses in Laos is at some of the stops, they were selling things. So often you can buy, like, snacks and stuff. But there, they had, like, whole chickens or, like, baby chickens on a stick. That was like, "Oh my god, like, what is this?"
Wow.
So, they had, like, the entire like a smaller chicken, of course, it was fried, but it was like these are the things you can see in Southeast Asia. And then you have these like Lao girls, getting their chicken stick and the sticky rice and like snacking that on the bus. That's like something I remember so much from those buses. Yeah, and I was already vegan.
I get so triggered by people eating like
Oh my
meats
god.
on the public transport because it's so
Yeah,
smelly. So
I
you were
know.
vegan at the time. I'm
Yes.
vegetarian. I mean, I can totally relate. Yeah.
It was definitely a bit weird, but you're in a different country. That's how it is. It's definitely difficult if you're on these long buses and you're vegan or vegetarian to perhaps even find food. I remember you kind of live off Oreos and chips, something like that. I mean, today I would probably be more prepared and would make something like some oats or whatever, something I can bring, but I don't think I was that like super prepared back then.
Mm-hmm. No, but it makes sense. Have some snacks.
Yeah, definitely. You need good snacks for those long trips. Yeah. So that's kind of like how bus travel is. Yeah.
Yeah, crazy, crazy. Okay, a little side note on that, Mark, from the Oreos. I didn't know that Oreos are vegan until I went vegan for a month. I tried 1 month, okay.
Okay.
And in that month, I ate like so many more cookies just because I know, like, oh, those cookies are vegan. Let me try that. And normally I don't even eat so many cookies, but I ate so many Oreos in that month. That was crazy.
Yeah, it's often the only thing you can find. Like if you want a snack, like a cookie or something, the Oreo is always your best friend in Southeast Asia.
And so the buses in Laos are more common than trains, or how does that look like?
Yeah, so generally, bus travel is the most common way to travel. But now, since 2022, there is a new fancy train which was built by China. So, China basically built this high speed train from the north of Laos. So, basically, goes through all of the north to Vientiane, the capital, but then it doesn't continue. So it doesn't go, they obviously probably just built it for their own purposes, right? Like to transport Chinese people into Laos, but then also for transporting goods, I guess,
Mm.
between the capital and China. Yeah, and I think they built up for several years and it opened in 2022. And I think it's very beneficial for tourists. I don't think it's so beneficial for the people of Laos. When I was there in 2022, I mean, I spoke with some locals and they say it's too expensive. Laos is still the least developed country in Southeast Asia. I mean, I don't know what their wages are, but they're probably very low. So for them, bus travel is the only affordable way of transport. I mean, I'm sure there's also some that will go on the train, but I don't think it's like a transportation method that is used by a lot of locals.
Okay.
Like in Thailand, the Thais travel the trains all the time. So yeah, it's a very fancy train.
Okay, yeah, probably because the infrastructure is missing. So the only infrastructure that's now there, from what I understanding, is not even from them. It's Chinese.
Yes.
So it's also maybe based on Chinese prices or just like on demands, basically.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't, I mean, of course, as a tourist coming from Europe, it didn't feel that expensive. I think it was something, I'll say somewhere between 15 and 20 euros for a two-hour ride with this fancy train. I took it in 2022 because before there was the way between Vang Vieng and Luang Prabang, which are both very popular towns to visit as a tourist. The minibus ride was like 8 hours because it went through like really curvy mountainous regions, and then you have the dirt roads again. So of course like the minivan can only go really slow. And then now you go on this high-speed train and it's an hour and a half. So of course it's super convenient to jump on this train as a traveler and instead of doing the minivan.
Wow. Okay.
But it still exists. You can still, of course, travel by bus.
Okay. Okay. We're going to do a little section called This or That. So I'm going to ask you to decide between two options and briefly explain why you choose that one over the other. So I'm going to start with This or That: bus in Thailand or bus in Laos.
Bus in Thailand. Because I would say it's a bit more comfortable. And yeah, because the roads are in better condition and it's quicker. Like it just takes longer to travel in Laos by bus.
Okay. Night bus or night train? Again, focused on those countries.
Night train. For the comfort of being able to lay down completely flat.
I get it. Yeah. Minibus or big bus?
Big bus. Because the minibuses sometimes gets like honestly they squeeze in so many people. I've had situations where, people even sit on like little plastic stools like in the middle.
Oh,
So
wow.
you're on a seat and then there's some space in between and they just squeeze in three more people. So sometimes it gets really, really crowded and then you're squeezed in there for like 3 hours. So it's definitely more comfortable on the bigger bus.
Are people standing sometimes?
No, I haven't experienced that. Only in
Okay.
different countries.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
This or that: website booking or local booking?
Hmm. Website booking, I would say, is the hack if you know the website. So if you know the website for the trains in Thailand or certain bus companies, you will always get a better price than if you go through, let's say, your hotel. I would just assume, to be honest, that they just put on a little margin for them, being the agent in between getting the ticket for you.
Ah, of course. Okay, makes sense, makes sense. What I was thinking of is more like sometimes I would go to buy the ticket in the train station.
Ah. Yeah, that works
And so I
too.
was wondering if it's better to buy it in the train station, like on at a local train station, basically directly there, or buy it through the website. Because even in Europe, I had the experience sometimes that a payment didn't work because I didn't have a French card, and apparently they needed a French card for the checkouts
Mm.
or seat reservation or whatever. So that was maybe more my take on it. How was your experience with that?
Let's say if you just want to do a short trip on the train, like let's say go from Bangkok to some town in the south for like 2-3 hours, then I would also just go to the train station and get a ticket. But if you want to take that night train and you want to be in the sleeper class, I would definitely pre-book on the website. I think unless you maybe travel in off season, you won't get anything at the train station. You will then end up in third class or something like that. I bet there's still seats available.
Okay. Well, then it comes right on point for my next this or that. So this or that, winter or summer?
Winter, because Thailand and Laos are both in dry season during the winter, which of course also makes it more crowded. It's but I'm like personally, I'm not the biggest fan of monsoon season. I mean, I'm in Thailand right now. It's monsoon season. It's just it's not that it rains all the time, but it is just quite gray. So you don't see the sun very often. Like if you're lucky, it peeks through for like half an hour during the day. So if you really want like that nice weather, blue skies, then you need to come between November and I'll say April, May.
Okay. And when you were saying like off season times, what would be the off season time?
Off season is then from June till October.
Okay, so like summer for us in Europe, basically.
Yes, yes.
Okay, interesting.
And Laos is the same, so they have the same seasons. I would say, though, October is actually a quite nice month to come if you want to see the north of Laos or the north of Thailand, because that's the time when all the rice fields are really green. And it's like, yeah, everywhere is just beautiful and green and super lush because the monsoon season just came to an end. It might still rain a little bit here and there, but for the lush landscapes, I think it's worth it.
Okay. Last, this or that, local music blasting or podcast in your ears.
Podcast. The local music often is a little bit too much for me. I mean, I've had crazy experiences with local music on buses. More in, I'll say more in Vietnam and Indonesia. Not so much in Thailand. They don't do music on the buses. And in Laos, I don't remember. I don't think so.
Mm-hmm. How is the policy actually with music on the buses? If somebody's like talking loud or like, do they put on their own music on their phone if there's no music coming from the bus directly? Or sometimes the bus does turn on music. How is that
Mm.
like?
So in Thailand, it's always really quiet. I feel like in general, because the Thai people are just so polite and really, they're just so kind and friendly. Like, I don't think anybody would really start like listening to a podcast without headphones. So I've never really experienced like anybody watching YouTube or something without headphones. And then in Laos, I would say it's completely the same.
Okay. And are there any buses with music? Because I feel like there must be like party buses or something, or that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Not so much.
I don't think so. I mean, I've had these party buses, like the local normal buses in Sri Lanka. They all have music and they're just crazy buses. And then in Indonesia, I also had some with such loud music. And I feel like they all listen to like their type of techno version. Like, I don't even know. It's like some weird EDM Indonesian style or Sri Lankan style or Vietnamese. In Vietnam, also lots of like really loud music.
All right. Okay.
But not in Thailand and Laos.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know. That's really nice, actually. So we can just peacefully enjoy our own person in the bus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could you talk a bit more about what are some practical tips to book bus and train tickets in Laos and Thailand?
Yeah. So train ticket for sure if you want to take a train between Chiang Mai and Bangkok, it doesn't matter where you start. Definitely book that in advance. Like don't wait around. Otherwise, I think it's pretty obvious you won't get a sleeper bed. That's a big tip. And then for the buses, I think for the VIP bus, it's not that urgent, but you also have to reserve it a few days in advance. And I would also reserve it on the website for the bus company. And I think you'll find the bus companies if you just Google. Like if you Google the different you say the route and you try and find the different bus companies and then you can just check for that bus company on their website. And I would say most of them translate into English. Otherwise, what I've done before, I've just went into a cafe and asked the owner like, "Hey, can you help us book the train or the bus on the website?" And then they read it in Thai, and then they help you. And you can always pay with a normal Visa card. Like, you don't need a Thai bank or something like that. So that has always worked out really well. And then for Laos, I think with the train, it's kind of similar. You need to reserve it a few days in advance. And in that case, at least 3 years ago, when the train was quite new, I think we had to do it through the accommodation or through some travel agent. Like, they didn't really sell them to foreigners at the station, if I remember it right. But that might be different now. So maybe now you can also just go to the train stations, like, a few days before you leave, and then you buy your ticket.
And could you name drop some names of some bus companies or train company names or websites?
That's a good they're all in Thai.
Because in Europe, we have a lot of comparing websites, such as like Omeo or Trainline, and I'm not sure if those also will help you out outside of Europe because I've never used that.
There's one very common one where you can get everything. It's called One to Go Asia,
Mhm.
but, you will pay more. But that one is a safe source for finding anything. Minivans, buses, ferries, trains, all of it. Like, all kinds of even I think even private taxis and private transfers.
Yeah. One thing sometimes I do, as actually maybe a side note on that part, is when I go to these comparing websites and then they say like, "Oh, you can take this bus company." Instead of buying it through the website that was showing the offer, I would go to the bus company and see it, like, if the
Yes.
prices compare. Sometimes it's even cheaper on the comparing website for some reason, but sometimes it's cheaper on the original website, and that's most of the time the case.
Yeah.
So sometimes I just use the comparing website as a tool, but not necessarily buy it over there. Maybe that's not so friendly of me because I'm using them, but just as a little tip for
Yeah.
saving money.
Yeah, but this is how you would find the companies too, because they show the names of the bus companies on Want to Go Asia. So that's definitely also a hack if you want to find the different operators and then you just Google the operator itself and find their own website. And then you can just book the bus directly through them.
Okay. Do you have any other, like, last tips you want to share?
Mm, I would say come with a like, especially if you travel through, I'll say, the south of Laos, come with an open heart and with a lot of patience when it comes to the trains. Sorry, not the trains, the buses, because I think that's just part of the journey and part of the experience in a country like Laos, where it's still much less developed like all the neighboring countries. And yeah, I think it's really part of the experience that you're traveling with a lot of locals, they might bring a little chicken on the stick. Like, it's like that's just authentic travel, to be honest,
Yeah.
if you jump on the buses. So it might just take a bit longer.
Okay, perfect. Then my last question to you is what is next for you? And you as an online persona, Eva and the planet, what are your plans?
So, yeah. So actually, in a few days, I'm flying to Sri Lanka to scout for a new group trip. So I spent 3 months in Sri Lanka 2 years ago, which was absolutely amazing. Beautiful country. And yeah, I'm going to spend 2 weeks there and checking out all the hotels and the local businesses that I'm, of course, already in contact with, and a bunch of workshops that I'm going to try out to put together a new group trip for next year. So that's the next 2 weeks.
Exciting.
And then after that, I'm going to Germany to visit my family and friends for 3.5 weeks, which, yeah, now I'm really excited. Like, it honestly, it's always ups and downs, you know? There's phases where you maybe had, like, a chat with your parents, you're like, "Ugh, you know, do I wanna visit?" Sometimes that happens. But, then once it comes closer, I'm, of course, really excited now, and I'm also excited to be back in Germany and eat a lot of amazing vegan food.
Yeah, we have a lot of that in Germany.
Yes, I'm so excited to go to the M. Who doesn't?
DM, for the people who don't know, it's like convenience store. Would that be the right word for it? A
Yeah.
bit more alternative, but still like
It has a bunch of, like, toiletry things, like shampoo, like anything, like hygiene products, but also amazing food options. So, it's one of my favorite stores in Germany.
yes. Okay, perfect. To round out the conversation, I always ask my guests a little fire round at the end, basically. So if you're ready, we can start with the end.
Yes, excited.
First of all, how old are you now?
I'm 37.
How old were you the first time you traveled to another continent?
16.
What's the longest time you've been away from home?
1.5 years.
Would you rather see a lot of places or get to know one place really well?
One place really well.
Okay. Would you rather save money on accommodation or pay for a good bed?
I would always, now at the age of 37, would pay for a good bed. It was different when I was younger. Yeah.
What word would you teach a foreigner who wants to learn your language?
Oh. Hmm. Probably, yeah, it must be one of the one the complicated German words. Hmm.
Could be travel related if you want.
Well, travel related, I'll say airplane, because obviously oftentimes we still have to take an air. Okay, we can't do airplane. Okay, it's a no-go. Flugzeug, that's like something people might actually can
It's actually
pronounce.
a funny word. Let's add a sustainable alternative. But yeah, Flugzeug is a funny word because it's like a fly thing. So Flugzeug.
Well, if you were vegan, that's very easy because it's the same.
Vegan.
So if you're vegan in Germany and you want vegan food, it's almost the same. You just pronounce it a little bit different.
It's a German twist.
Yeah, the A is more of a vegan instead of vegan.
Vegan.
Even in smaller cities, I think the veganism kind of arrived in the last years.
Yeah, definitely. I think so too. All right, next one. What can't you travel without? What is one thing you need when you travel?
I have a small pillow. Yeah, because oftentimes I feel like the pillows, no matter if it's a hotel, homestay, any accommodation, mostly they're just too high and too thick, and I can't sleep on them. So I started bringing like a really, like, honestly, it's like really flat and it just rolls up. It's been a lifesaver for my neck, for sure.
Oh, amazing. Okay. What's your favorite travel song or a song you like to listen to when you're, in your case, on the bus, on the train, slow traveling?
Hmm. It's about Bangkok. It's not like One Night in Bangkok, it's like a different one. There's this one like One Night in Bangkok. Like that. It's not that one. There's another one. Yeah, that's kind of, well, it really fits our location here. I'll check our travel Spotify real quick here.
Hmm.
So so I just found it in my travel Spotify list, and it's called Thailand by the Elevators.
Elevators. Okay. I will look that
Yeah.
one up later. Thank you. Last one. Why do you travel?
To get to know new cultures. I think that's the most important part of travel for me, to learn how it is in other countries.
Okay, amazing. And then I've added one more question, which was asked to you by my previous interview partner who didn't know who you are. So it's just like a random question they chose. And I will ask you afterwards to also ask a question for the next person. So this question is by Joe Sills. We talked about sustainability of cruises. And his question is, if you could be any historical figure and get in a time machine to any other time, who would you be and where would you go? And what would you try to change?
What is the meaning of historical figure? Can that person still be alive?
Yeah, I mean, interpret it the way you want it to be
Yeah.
interpreted.
I would like to be David Attenborough. And where would I like to travel? I think I would like to go to the Galapagos Islands to study the marine animals in the Galapagos.
In which time?
I'm in the 80s.
Mm,
In the
okay.
80s, Galapagos Islands, David Attenborough, and
What would you try to change?
I would try to change the whole industrialization, or that like everything where it kind of started, that we are like where we are now with, big corporations just wanting to make as much profit as possible and almost no, yeah, I almost want to say almost no one doesn't really care about the climate crisis we're in. So I would really love to go back to the point where there was like this turning point where it just kind of like exploded and went like exponentially up.
Yeah.
I think that was like 80s or 90s, wasn't it? I feel like I've seen graphs where, and then suddenly it just explodes with like everything, the development and the consumerism and all of that. Like, yeah, actually, I would like to change the consumerism.
Yeah. It actually makes me think of a documentary I literally watched yesterday night, Buy More, on Netflix, which was really scary about the whole how consumerism really works. And like it was a
Oh my God.
well-made documentary which was entertaining to watch, but also with numbers that are kind of freaking me out. But all right, it's your turn to ask a question. So take a
Mm.
moment. What question would you want to ask my next guests?
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think I have something.
Okay, go for it.
Well, let's pretend there's no crises. Would you travel from any country in Central Europe to Thailand with a bicycle via land instead of taking a plane?
Okay, good question. We'll see who is the next guest, and I'm excited to hear their answer. Thank you so much for taking part of this episode. Where can my listeners go ahead and find you?
They can come and check out my Instagram account, which is Eva the Planet. And if they're interested in my current trip, that is on evaandtheplanet.com. So it's like the same name, and you'll find the current group trip on my website.
All right, I will put your website and the Instagram handle in the show notes.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for taking part.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. It was so much fun talking about buses and trains in Thailand and Laos. I mean, so many good memories.
This was Travel Devil, brought to you by me, your host, Clara Francken. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to continue the conversation or suggest any future guests, you can go to my Instagram, @Clara Francken. Take care, and I will see you next Thursday.